Do you know the joy of finishing a sketchbook? I do. I'm so proud when it's complete. I want to help you finishing yours with 25 ideas, and in this sketchbook I'm using Gouache Paint. The first 14 pages are my Fill Your Gouache Sketchbook workshop detailed, and then there are new ideas. The first page is meant for you to know the gouache, to master the liquid consistency, because it's quite different from watercolor, as you may not think, maybe. And I want you to play with very liquid consistency, so you learn how pigmented are the colors, how the gouache has much more pigments inside than watercolor, and also pigments don't behave the same. So it's quite cool if you mix pigments in different simple shapes, like circles, for example, and drop a bit more color on top of it. Just get the feel of it, and so it's a warm-up. Page 2 is about playing with consistencies, because the great thing with gouache is that you can get a lot of different consistency, from very watery, very transparent, to more opaque, to completely thick, and you can get really nice textures. So it's just an abstract page, and you will play with different type of gouache, so you can really get to know and understand how gouache is behaving. Gouache is not always easy to say. Page 3 is about the full, complete opacity of gouache. If you want to get the most out of gouache, you really need to use it very thick, very opaque, and it will be really easier to layer and to get opaque layers without getting the underlayer visible, and also it's the best way not to lift up the color below. So in this page, I am just drawing some random flowers with a cool pastel range of colors, and also it can be a bit more dark if you prefer. And at the end of the page, you really master the creamy, thick consistency of gouache. Page 4 is all about gradients. This is something you really need to master when you are painting with gouache. And I show you 4 different ways to do it, either using a thick consistency, a thin consistency, without water, with water, before, after, with the brush, with the finger. You have so many different ways to do it, and this is something that is really interesting to know if your style is into blending colors. With gouache you can achieve a lot of styles, but if you like to blend, really, you want to follow this one. In page 5, we are painting Cactus in the sunset. This one is really fun because you get to use all the consistencies of gouache, from very liquid, like watercolor, to completely thick, very opaque. It's really unpredictable what you can get in the sky, and this is the funny part of it. Also, you learn a lot about saturation, value, and how to achieve the correct mix for your colors. Very interesting page, I must say. Page 6 is all about colorful shadows, because you don't want to use black in your shadows. No, you don't. I promise you don't, because black is getting your colors dull, it's getting everything flat, and it's so much more powerful when you are using colors. And in this page, I will explain how to use a chromatic wheel, so you get always the correct color for your shadows. Page 7 is all about textures, so we can have fun with the different consistencies and using different tools with gouache, because gouache can behave like acrylic, like oil, like anything else you want. This is the magic of gouache. Can you tell I love gouache? I'm not sure. So keep your damaged brushes, grab a palette knife, and let's have fun with a lot of textures. I don't know about you, but I think exercises are boring, and I prefer to use what I know in an actual painting. This is what we are doing in page 7, with painting this little bird with a lot of textures, especially in the branches under the bird. And also the bushes, the feathers, the sky. There is a lot of room to having fun. When you're done with the bird, don't throw away your palette. Keep it, because you can do a lot of things with your leftover on your palette. I don't like to waste paint, so I always try to find new ways to use what I have left on it. Here, I've just been after the bird, so some of the paint is still fresh, but it works as well if you are using dry palette. And you can make abstract landscapes by using different tools, like your finger. Yeah, a finger is a tool, don't you think? And while we have gouache on our palette, why not making a mixed media page with gouache? And this is page number 10. You can have a lot of fun with using what you have left or adding new fresh paint, using a sprayer, having some dripping, some splattering, adding soft pastels, crayons, pencils, markers, whatever you have. And you will always get different pages each time. This is really the beauty of it. Page 11, let's have fun with some strawberries. And they are just hand painted, no drawing before. I've just placed kind of a strange background with different blues, and I'm using a very thick paint so I don't lift up the color below. This is something you learn during my lessons for these pages. Let's have fun, add some stars, some white spots here and there, and let's call this finished. The page 12 is not pretty, I must say, but it's a very important one because you learn how to lower the amount of brush strokes you are using. This is really interesting because you have to be creative with the way you move your brush on the paper, because sometimes it's not just a straight brush stroke. You have to twist it, bend it, curve it. I don't know any more names about this, but you've got the idea. And at the end, you have an important skill. Page 13 is maybe one of my favorites. I'm using gouache painting like oil painting. For this, I'm applying a background with acrylic. It's a neon pink. It's really hard to see eyes. And then I'm just cutting out the shape with a negative shape, placing the background first and painting the flowers on top of it. And the tip is to let the background shine through your brush strokes, and for this you need a very thick paint. Page 14 is actually the cover of the sketchbook. This is the one I did at the very end because I don't like to make the cover first. Don't ask me why. This is a night sky with a lot of stars, so we are dripping and splattering. Hard to say this one, making fluffy clouds, and it's actually a lot of brush strokes to achieve this effect. And I don't tell you more, you have to go and watch the lesson to know. Page 17 is a flower. Of course, flowers are a really good subject to paint, and maybe this is my least favorite page in the sketchbook. Well, those things happen. This is one of my Sunday Live where I show during 1 hour, approximately, how to paint everything with gouache. Page 16 is a fun exercise you can do when you want to swatch a new color palette. Here I'm swatching my Himi paint just by painting hearts all around the 2 pages. This is the only double page in the sketchbook, by the way. I don't know why. Don't ask me. And what you can do is test the opacity of the paint by having some arts overlapping onto each other, so you can really get the feel of the consistency, the creamy, the opacity, etc., etc. Very good exercise. A bit long, I must say, but quite meditative. Page 17 is a little cactus in a golden pot. This is a part of my cactus painting gouache class where I show you 6 different ways to paint cactus with gouache. This is a really fun class. I love it. Page 18 is one of my Sunday Live where I am painting a giant raspberry. I have trouble because, fun fact, I used to say raspberry for about 50 years and I just recently discovered it's raspberry. For the page 19, it's a really very cool subject. I love painting mushrooms. They come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and colors, and you can get them on a dark background, a light background, adding grass on top of it, a lot of details, or be more loose. Really, mushrooms are a very good idea to fill your sketchbook. Page 20 is a cool cocktail glass. I was using gouache and I had a hard time blending with the paint. But you can still get regular paint and achieve a nice blending, unlike me. This is another live from Sunday. Page 21 is an illustration with cute trees and bushes. This one was used for my video about gouache consistency, do's and don'ts. And if you haven't watched it yet, here is your chance. You have the link in the description below the video. Page 22 is another one from my live painting sessions, and this one had a lot of textures. Really, it was a tricky one, and I wouldn't advise you to begin with this one, maybe once you have mastered a bit more the gouache paint. Page 23 is a bird that is kind of jumping out of the page. I was testing the Schmink Horadam gouache paint, which is, by the way, the most expensive gouache you can get. And I was just trying to achieve something very colorful because I wanted to test the pigments. And, well, the pigments are great, and the paint is great as well. And it's an idea to just browse for a bird, and there are a lot of fancy birds out there. And we are almost done. This is page 24, and I'm quite sure this is my favorite one in the complete sketchbook. It's so detailed. You have a lot of depth with the different slices, the colors, the textures, the highlights. I love everything. Plus, we had great fun during the live, as I was with Jennifer Nichols and she was painting with digital. Go and watch this one. This is really a cool one. And the last page is an experiment with just 3 primaries and white. And I wanted to show that you can mix any color you like with just 4 colors. And I just made a class about mixing color. If you're interested, you have the link in the description below the video. This is the page that took me the longest time because you have so many bricks, so many little leaves that you have to go on top of each other with 3, 4, 5 layers sometimes. Oh, I'm sure I won't do that again, ever.